Hi, it's Davin Sundvik with The Catch today, and we're going to be talking about navigational strategy on this video. So navigation is going to be a multi-part series. So if there's a particular skill that you're interested in that I covered, that I was really brief about, don't worry, just let me know in the comment section. And I'll make sure that I expand on it in future videos. So the reason why I'm making this is because I was stuck in the woods for 3 days longer on a hunting trip. And so either you're going to need these skills to know how to prevent this type of a situation or to survive a situation like this. If you are somebody who goes into the woods often, you may need these skills. So navigation and communication do go hand in hand. So I do want to cover a little bit of the communication things that we're going to need along the way. So if you're in a situation where you are navigating to safety, you're either in one of three scenarios, right? You're either in a scenario where people don't know where you are and you don't really know where you are, right? To a certain degree, right? You're kind of lost almost. The other situation is you're not where people think you are and you want to be where people think you are so that you can be found, right? The third option is that you know where you are and people know where you are. They just haven't found you yet, right? So that's like the best situation, right? And it's going to be kind of like on a scale, right? So it's either going to be worse or better, right? So if we are right in the middle here, we want to try to make it better as good as we can, right? So if we know how to use a map and limit the amount of radius that we could potentially be lost in, that's better, right? So for example, you need to learn latitude and longitude. It's a skill that you need to understand, right? So if you know the latitude and longitude of where you were last like known, right? Like, so for example, if that's like your campsite or your vehicle, that's a great area to know the latitude and longitude of, right? And have it marked somewhere on a map that you're carrying with you if you're on foot. Now, if you know the latitude and longitude that you're at, perfect. But if you don't know how to find that skill, then you need to create what's called a radius. And you need to determine, okay, is the radius that I am lost in bigger than the distance between me and my vehicle, right? Like if you're lost and you don't know which canyon you're in, but you know you're like 10 miles away from your vehicle, it's like, okay, well, a canyon might only be 400 yards wide, right? So no matter what canyon you're in, like that radius is much that where you're lost in is much smaller, right? So like let's just say my finger is the inside of that radius, right? And you know that your truck's way over here, that's good enough, right? You can start going towards your vehicle, get some context clues along the way, and hopefully you're not, you can get a heading, right? And going in the right direction. Now, obviously, we would want a compass, some type of a compass in order to go in the right direction. But if we don't have a compass, we can use our cell phones or we can even use the sun. So, again, I'm not going to teach every single skill here, but these are just some things that we can use to get a heading and know that we're going in the right direction. And once we've traveled in a certain direction for a certain period of time, we need to take that radius and reassess it once in a while, right? Are we going in the right direction, right? Is that radius, do we believe that we have enough context to say, okay, we are moving that radius closer to the vehicle or closer to the desired destination? As long as we're doing that and we know that, like we're 100% sure, and we're using the context, hopefully that radius gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and we're like, you know what, I found where I'm at, I found where I need to be. That's great. That's ideal. Now, there are situations where you think you could be getting closer to your vehicle or closer to the safety, and you're really getting more lost, right? And let's say you do find yourself at number 3. What do you do? So this is going to be now the worst case scenario of what you're going to have to do to get out of that situation, right? If you don't have a map, this is going to be almost impossible to do. And so let's just say you don't have a map, right? And then we'll do it based on if you have a map. Well, if you don't have a map, you're going to want to go downhill most of the time, right? If it's raining and there's like slot canyons or there are terrain features that allow you to believe that you could be in an area that could get easily flooded, you may want to stay high enough on the topography to at least be safe from flash floods. So, for example, if there are, if you see that the mountain kind of goes down, but see these little creases in my fingers, right? Those are all areas where water can flood down the mountain at a high rate of speed. So going downhill might not mean walking downhill like this. It might be walking downhill on a little ridge, right? So a little bit of common sense does go a long way with this. But walk down until you find water sources that are flowing, right? Now, little puddles and pools are great. And even if we find a little puddle or pool, we can usually look downhill and say, okay, if there was a lot of water here, where would that water go, right? And that water would spill over, go into a wash, and keep going downhill, right? So there are situations, though, where you hit the absolute bottom of the terrain feature you're walking on. And it's either going to be one of two things. It's either going to be a saddle, which kind of, they actually look like a saddle, but it's a curved feature like this. And it's actually an area where a lot of animals have to pass. It's called a mountain pass. So it's an area where it's easy to pass through a mountain. Well, if you're on a saddle, you can either go one direction down the saddle, or you can go the other direction down the saddle, and both of them will lead to a valley. So now you have to determine which valley you want to go in. Or you are in a valley bottom, and if you are in the bottom of a valley, then there are most likely two saddles or more saddles on either side of you. Let's just say in this particular example, there's two saddles on either side of you in that valley. So you have a choice. Do I go north? Do I go south? If we're on the saddle, do I go to the valley north, or do I go to the valley south, right? So this is where the map is going to help you. If you can now estimate roughly where you are, right, within maybe a mile or a 10-mile radius, and maybe have some context over like what's going on with the major mountain ranges and where you're at, and then you can maybe determine, okay, does one of these valleys nearby have a marked water source on the map? And maybe the other one just has some really small marked water sources, right? I would go to the one that's bigger, because obviously bigger is going to have more people. So if you have this, then suddenly your decision is no longer 50-50. Now it's 90-10. So do you see how some of these map reading skills increase your odds of survival even in the toughest of situations, right? Now, if you're truly lost, right, obviously the odds are stacked against you, but you can still increase your odds with your skills. So hopefully that makes sense and why you want to map read. So now that we kind of understand the basics of it, once we find a larger water source, the idea is that we're going to find signage, evidence of people, right? Eventually we'll get rescued. If we can find bigger and bigger water sources until eventually we get to something that's like a dammed lake, like a lake that has a dam on it, and we can find a dam, well, a dam needs a maintenance crew, right? If it's big enough to have a dam, it might have electrical current, or it might have a road nearby, and that dam is the bridge to get from one side of the river system to another side of the river system. So all super, super important skills. Obviously, this is navigating on land here. If we were navigating out in the ocean, it'd be a little bit different because we don't have mountains and topography, but we do have some other context clues that could be nearby us in the ocean. So maybe I'll have to make a whole ocean navigation video just for fun's sake. But anyway, I do appreciate you watching. Obviously, this was a strategy video, and so if you want to take something away from this video, I would encourage you that the next time you're going somewhere, read a map, and like read a paper map once in a while. Like buy a paper map of your city, right? And try to get to places that you want to go just using the paper map, and make it fun. If you make it fun and make a little game out of it, eventually you will have a skill that you can always rely on, and you really don't lose the skill of map reading because it's not that complicated. And if you just practice it for maybe like a year, you will truly master this skill. And you'll be able to survive situations and know where you're going. So, and honestly, if you knew how to read a map really, really well, you wouldn't be lost, because even in my excursion where I got stuck, at no point in time did I not know where I was. I knew where I was 100% of the time. And I'm very thankful for that, because if I didn't know where I was, then I might not have been here today. That is how serious this skill is. So thank you for watching and have a great day.